It was Christmas Day, 1995. The streets of Beverly Hills were unusually quiet, blanketed in a soft, golden hush. The kind of stillness that feels like a breath, held too long. But inside one of the city's most iconic homes, a sprawling mansion, once filled with music, laughter, and the scent of cigars, silence meant something else. Deana Martin was gone. At 78 years old, the man the world knew as the King of Cool took his final breath in the early hours of the morning. He died peacefully, alone in his bed, after a long battle with lung disease. No fanfare, no farewell tour, no press conference, just a quiet exit, like the final note of a song that fades instead of crashing. News broke later that day, sending shockwaves through the entertainment world. Headlines mourned the loss of a legend. Tributes poured in from celebrities, fans, and friends. Sinatra was reportedly inconsolable, and across the country, radios played "That's Amore" on loop, as if the world itself was grieving the sound of something irreplaceable. But inside the Martin estate, grief looked different. Family members, children, ex-wives, and close friends had started to gather, each of them carrying their own version of Dean. To some, he was the smooth-talking crooner. To others, the absent but affectionate father. To many, a complicated man whose smile could fill a room, but whose eyes always seemed a little tired. They came not just to mourn, but to remember. The house felt like a living museum. Photos of Dean with JFK, with Elvis, with Sinatra, movie posters on the walls, gold records on the shelves, and the faint scent of his favorite scotch still lingering in the den. But beneath the nostalgia, something else lingered. A question, a tension. Dean had been a private man, especially in his final years. After the death of his son Dean Paul in 1987, he'd retreated from the spotlight, declined multi-million-dollar reunion tours, and seemed to live for the quiet things: golf, old westerns, and solitude. And now, there was one more mystery left behind: his will. Rumors had circulated for years. Some said Dean had quietly sold off most of his assets. Others believed he'd left everything to charity. A few whispered that he'd been nearly broke. But as the family gathered in the study, waiting for the executor to arrive, no one really knew. They just knew this: Deana Martin had always done things his way. He left the stage when no one expected it. He walked away from Hollywood when others clung to fame. If anyone had planned something surprising, something hidden, it would have been him. As the lawyer opened the first envelope and began to read, the room fell completely silent. And what they discovered next would leave them in tears. Born Dino Paul Crocetti on June 7, 1917, in Steubenville, Ohio, Deana Martin's roots traced back to humble beginnings. His parents, Gaetano Guy Crocetti, a barber from Montesilvano, Italy, and Angela Barra, a first-generation Italian-American, had built a tight-knit immigrant family in Steubenville's West End, a working-class neighborhood filled with fellow Abruzzi families. Dino grew up with his older brother William, in a house filled with Italian songs, shared meals, and bocce games behind their home, an upbringing steeped in tradition and community. As a young boy, Dino spoke almost no English. Starting school at age 5, he struggled to understand and be understood, enduring teasing and shyness. The language barrier marked him an outsider, until he discovered humor as his secret weapon. A quick joke could transform jeers into laughter, and little by little, he found a way to navigate school and social life. His sense of humor, gathered from church functions and neighborhood events, became his shield and his future stage presence. Still a teenager, Dino dropped out of high school at around age 17 and began working in the local steel mills, rigorous grey places where men sweated through brutal grinding shifts. He also took up boxing under the name Kid Crochet, engaging in bare-knuckle bouts that left him bruised, his nose broken, knuckles scarred, and surprisingly exhilarated. A youthful defiance sparked in those gritty matches, each punch and jab teaching him more about resilience than any schoolroom ever could. Yet Dino wasn't defined by the smoke of the mills or the pain of the ring. He found a different beat as a drummer in local bands, a respite from hard labor and one of his earliest steps towards showbiz. Around the same time, he began selling bootleg liquor during Prohibition and dealing blackjack in Steubenville's backroom clubs, absorbing the rhythms and raw energy of nighttime entertainment. It was in these smoky, risk-fueled spaces that his charm and street smarts sharpened, preparing him for Hollywood, even though step one was just survival. The true turning point came with music and laughter. Dino sang folk ballads at home and imitated Bing Crosby at local cinemas, mastering smooth phrasing and emotional tone just by ear. He took informal voice lessons from the mayor's wife, Corinne Applegate, a modest offering that proved invaluable. By age 17, he began billing himself as Deana Martin, fronting local bands and drawing small paying crowds. His singing was become a release, his humor a bridge between people. Again and again, he wove laughter and melody into his survival toolkit and discovered his future vocation. By his late teens, Dino left Steubenville, heading first to Cleveland and later to New York, seeking a stage worthy of his emerging talent. Cleveland bandleader Sammy Watkins heard him and urged him to change his name to Deana Martin, marking the official start of his legend. But the foundations had been built long before, in steel and smoke, fists and laughter. In the smoky backroom of the Glass Hat Club in New York City, 1945, fate collided with chaos, and comedy was never the same again. Deana Martin, with his velvet voice and effortless charm, was already a favorite among nightclub goers. Tall, tanned, and impossibly cool, he was the kind of man who could sing a love song and have the whole room leaning in. On the other end of the spectrum was a wiry, unpredictable force of nature named Jerry Lewis. Young, loud, and outrageously physical, Jerry was trying to make a name for himself through slapstick antics and manic energy. Two men from different worlds, different styles, different intentions. They weren't meant to perform together. In fact, that first night, Jerry interrupted Dean's act as a prank, playing the busboy, dropping plates, shouting nonsense from backstage. The crowd burst into laughter. Dean, instead of storming off, rolled with it. He leaned into the madness, cracked a line, and let Jerry steal the spotlight. It worked. Too well. That accidental spark became a flame. Club owners noticed. Audiences returned night after night. And just like that, the duo of Martin and Lewis was born, combining Dean's smooth crooning and aloof wit with Jerry's outrageous slapstick and screeching silliness. What should have been a one-time gag turned into a showbiz revolution. By 1946, they were headlining at the 500 Club in Atlantic City. Their act was unpredictable, improvised, and electric. Jerry would burst in mid-song, trip over tables, climb Dean like a tree. Dean, always the straight man, delivered lines with a wink that made the insanity somehow feel sophisticated. It was comedy with chemistry, raw, fresh, and impossible to duplicate. Hollywood couldn't ignore them. In 1949, they starred in My Friend Irma, and although they weren't the leads, their chemistry stole the spotlight. Movie after movie followed. At War with the Army, That's My Boy, The Stooge. 16 films in total. Each packed theaters, each solidified them as the hottest act in America. By 1951, they were the highest-paid entertainers in the world. Their radio show on NBC was a nationwide hit. They were invited to every major venue, every studio, every award show. Critics adored Jerry's wild energy, and audiences swooned over Dean's charisma. It seemed like nothing could stop them. But behind the curtain, the magic was starting to wear thin. Dean Martin began to feel like a shadow in his own act. The media focused on Jerry's antics. Producers gave him the punchlines, the screen time, the credit. Dean often joked, "I've got it made. I don't have to work anymore. I've got Jerry Lewis." But deep down, it wasn't a joke. During the filming of Three Ring Circus in 1954, tensions peaked. Dean only sang twice, once to caged animals, once to Jerry. Meanwhile, Jerry had the spotlight, the laughs, the control. Dean snapped, "Hey Jerry, what am I around here? A fifth wheel?" He wasn't just tired of playing the straight man. He was tired of not being seen at all. Their personal differences made things worse. Jerry was obsessive, rehearsed everything to perfection. Dean was relaxed, liked to wing it. Jerry wanted long rehearsals. Dean wanted golf. The harmony that made them famous began to unravel. Then came the blow that couldn't be undone. In 1956, they were filming Hollywood or Bust. Communication between them had dropped to near zero. Scenes were filmed separately. Dean called Jerry the monkey. Jerry tried to apologize. Dean shut him down. And during one particularly tense moment, in front of the crew, Dean looked Jerry in the eye and said, "You can talk about love all you want. To me, you're nothing but a dollar sign." On July 25, 1956, exactly 10 years after their debut, Martin and Lewis took the stage at the Copacabana for the final time. The room was packed with stars: Frank Sinatra, Lucille Ball, even Humphrey Bogart. They performed their old routines, sang That's Amore, tried to laugh like it didn't hurt. But the spark was gone. Their final duet, Partners, brought tears to the audience. The applause lasted 5 full minutes. Then the lights went down, the curtain closed, and Martin and Lewis were no more. The greatest comedy duo of their generation dissolved not with a bang, but a sigh. And Dean Martin stepped off stage with nothing but silence and a question burning in the minds of every critic and fan. Was Dean Martin finished, or just getting started? In 1957, Dean Martin stepped back into the spotlight solo. His first post-duo film, 10,000 Bedrooms, flopped, but Martin didn't flinch. He fueled his comeback by pursuing serious roles, and the gamble paid off. The Young Lions, 1958, starring Marlon Brando and Montgomery Clift, revealed Dean's depth as an actor, and critics loved his turn. That same year, he co-starred with Frank Sinatra in Some Came Running, cementing his credibility not just as a singer, but as a dramatic force. On the music front, he released Volare in 1958, and it soared up the charts in both the US and the UK, proof he was far more than a nostalgia act. Then came his crowning musical moment, Everybody Loves Somebody, in 1964. One spot on Billboard, a remarkable feat in the era of rock and roll. As Dean's career soared, Las Vegas called and he answered. He joined the legendary Rat Pack alongside Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, and Joey Bishop. Their shows at the Sands and MGM were electrifying. The pack combined music, jokes, and off-the-cuff banter into pure Vegas magic. Dean's laid-back swagger, ever-present cocktail, really apple juice, and effortless humor made him the cool pillar of the group. He was its charming anchor, never loud, never overbearing, yet impossible to ignore. In 1965, NBC handed Dean Martin his own variety show, The Dean Martin Show. It ran for 9 seasons, 1965 to 1974, and delivered 264 episodes. The show's secret: Dean demanded total control. His demands were legendary: work just 1 day a week, show up for taping day only, and never rehearse. NBC agreed, and that gamble paid off. Each episode began with Dean sliding down a fireman's pole, never scripted, never staged. His apple juice in disguise drink and his occasional flubs added to the charm. He masterfully blended music, comedy sketches, celebrity guests, and unpredictable banter. When ratings dipped in the early 70s, the show morphed. In 1974, it spun off its own hit, The Dean Martin Celebrity Roast, a series of star-studded specials where celebrities roasted each other in a laughter-fueled battle of wits. The roast ran until 1984, maintaining solid viewership numbers. Production legend Greg Garrison recalled the atmosphere. Dean kept things loose and surprising. He never memorized scripts or reshot lines, so any slip-ups went live, creating moments of genuine humor. By the mid-60s to early 70s, Dean Martin had become a cultural institution: film star, chart-topping singer, Vegas legend, and TV icon. He seamlessly blended old-school crooning with unscripted charisma, appealing to both blue and white-collar America. The Rat Pack concerts remained legendary. Their extemporaneous banter, cross-jokes, and raw friendship created a brand of entertainment that felt personal and unrepeatable. Dean's consistent presence, always a drink in hand, always seemingly unflappable, became synonymous with Hollywood cool. Yet behind the laughter and fame, a subtle tension grew. The man who once left Hollywood behind after loss was still nurturing a quieter side, a father who valued solitude and a soul shaped by tragedy. To the world, Dean Martin was smooth, untouchable, the man who made cool look effortless. But behind the stage lights and velvet suits was a man who craved something Hollywood couldn't give him: family. Dean married 3 times and fathered 8 children. His first marriage to Betty McDonald brought him 4 kids: Craig, Claudia, Gail, and Deana. Though the marriage ended in 1949, just as his fame was taking off, he remained a present and playful father, known for hosting backyard barbecues and movie nights between gigs. His daughter Deana once recalled that despite the bright lights and big stages, her father's warmest moments happened around the dinner table, often with Frank Sinatra or Marilyn Monroe dropping by like family. Later that same year, Dean married Jean Bieger, a stunning beauty queen who became the anchor of his personal life. Together, they had 3 children: Dean Paul, Richie, and Gina. For over 2 decades, their marriage brought stability, at least on the surface. Jean understood the rhythms of fame, and Dean tried to shelter his children from its harsher glare. Even after they divorced in 1973, their bond remained strong, and they continued co-parenting with genuine care. His third and final marriage to Catherine Horn in 1973 introduced a stepdaughter, Sasha, whom Dean adopted and loved like his own. Though the marriage ended just 3 years later, his devotion to Sasha never wavered. To Dean, fatherhood wasn't just a role, it was a refuge, but even the deepest love can't protect from tragedy. In 1987, Dean's son, Dean Paul Martin, a former tennis pro, actor, and military pilot, crashed while flying a Phantom F-4C jet for the California Air National Guard. He was just 35. The jet slammed into the San Bernardino Mountains during a routine training mission. When recovery teams finally found the wreckage, the heartbreak was absolute. Dean was shattered. Friends said he never recovered. That same year, he was set to tour with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. in a high-profile Rat Pack reunion. But halfway through, Dean walked away. No explanations, no second thoughts. It was as if something inside him had gone quiet and stayed that way. He turned down TV specials, Vegas residencies, and million-dollar contracts. He didn't want to be seen. Instead, he sought comfort in routine. Golf in the mornings, old westerns in the afternoons, and scotch, real or staged, at night. His laughter, once booming on sound stages and casino floors, was now reserved for small circles. His Beverly Hills mansion became his sanctuary. Close friends tried to draw him back in. Sinatra begged him to return to the stage. NBC offered revivals. Producers pitched biopics. Dean declined them all. He didn't want applause anymore. He wanted peace. Even so, beneath that silence, something was happening. Dean had always been a sharp businessman. Unbeknownst to many, he began arranging his estate. Quietly, deliberately, he reviewed royalties, he adjusted trusts, he sold, invested, protected. The man who once sang about love and loss with a wink was now planning how to leave love behind when he was gone. He wasn't preparing for another comeback. He was crafting a legacy. But Dean Martin had never stopped paying attention. In the years following the tragic loss of his son, Dean began organizing his affairs, not with fanfare or public statements, but with the quiet precision of a man who knew time was closing in. He wasn't interested in a legacy built on nostalgia. He wanted security, stability, something that would last longer than applause. What few people knew at the time was that Dean had established the Dean Martin Family Trust, a private legal structure designed to manage and protect his estate. The trust included not only his musical royalties and film rights, but a collection of real estate investments, licensing agreements, and one-of-a-kind memorabilia, assets he had quietly curated over decades. When Dean Martin passed away on Christmas Day, 1995, much of the world assumed he had quietly faded from the spotlight, perhaps even from fortune. After all, he'd spent the last years of his life away from the cameras, away from the stage, and far from the glitz that had once defined him. Among his most valuable properties was a sprawling Beverly Hills mansion he had purchased in the 1970s for a modest $120,000. Over the years, he expanded and renovated it, turning it into a 12,000-square-foot sanctuary. After his passing, it was sold for $1.35 million. Years later, it was flipped again, and by 2023, the same plot had transformed into a modern estate worth an estimated $28 million. Then there was his Palm Springs home, a stylish getaway that reflected his easygoing personality. Though sold soon after his death for just $250,000, the property's historic value as Dean Martin's hideaway continued to climb. But the crown jewels of his estate weren't just homes, they were songs. Dean's music catalog, including hits like That's Amore, Ain't That a Kick in the Head, and Everybody Loves Somebody, continued to generate royalties from radio, film, commercials, and now streaming platforms. His face and voice still echoed across generations, and the licensing rights from television reruns of The Dean Martin Show brought in consistent revenue. What truly shocked the family, though, wasn't the value. It was the detail. Dean hadn't just left them money. He'd outlined how it should be used, divided, and protected. Each child received a portion based on their relationship with him and their individual needs. Some portions included trust payouts, others were tied to future royalties or licensing rights. In the years since his passing, the estate has continued to yield income through merchandise, music re-releases, and even holiday compilations that top seasonal charts every December. One of the most emotional moments came when the family realized how carefully Dean had included everyone. Even Sasha, his adopted daughter from his third marriage, was treated as equally as his biological children. To them, that was the final proof of what they already knew. Dean didn't just love his family, he thought about them long after his last curtain call. Deana Martin, his daughter and one of his most active legacy holders, once said, "He didn't talk about his feelings often, but he made sure we were taken care of." That was his love language. Today, thanks to the foundation he built, the Dean Martin estate remains one of the most active and successful celebrity-managed trusts of the 20th century. In 2022, iconic artist group, the same team behind legacy deals for Cher and Nat King Cole, acquired the rights to Dean's music, name and image in a major partnership to bring his brand into the 21st century. New licensing deals, merchandise, and planned biopics are already in the works. Dean Martin may have slipped quietly into the shadows in life, but in death, his voice, style, and legacy roared back with new purpose. When the Dean Martin Family Trust and its trustee finalized the deal in late 2022, few realized its magnitude. Iconic artist group, helmed by Irving Azoff, had acquired Dean's full entertainment rights, music catalog, image, trademarks, and distribution deals. This move positioned Dean alongside legends like Cher and Nat King Cole in a strategic push to revitalize his legacy. Suddenly, Dean Martin's name popped up in unexpected places: stylish King of Cool tees, golf polos, retro vinyl reissues, and even specialty limited edition popcorn gift bundles from Eatable Popcorn, marketed during the 2025 Oscars rollout. This gourmet trio featured flavors inspired by his classic songs and was selected for the Everyone Wins nominee gift bags at the ceremony, proof his brand had tangible appeal in today's culture. Dean's official store now carries vintage-style tees, holiday albums on vinyl and CD, and collectibles that blend nostalgia with contemporary design. More than nostalgia, it sustained profitability, with new buyers discovering Dean's charm in bite-sized, wearable ways. The resurgence isn't limited to physical goods. Iconic's aim is to cultivate a digital presence that resonates with younger Gen Z audiences. Their strategy? TikTok campaigns, curated Spotify playlists, and viral nostalgia trends with hashtags like "Can't Go Wrong" with Dean Martin already gathering over 13 million tagged posts. One viral TikTok from Eatable Popcorn's Instagram cross-post featured young creators enjoying Dean Martin popcorn while grooving to his tunes, a nod to merging mid-century swagger with modern social media culture. These platforms helped his music re-enter streaming charts and introduced his voice to audiences who weren't even born when Everybody Loves Somebody topped the charts. The iconic deal is part of a broader trend. Azoff's firm recently signed 8- and 9-figure catalog deals, including Rod Stewart's $100 million deal in early 2024, backed by major investment partners like HPS Investment Partners. By comparison, Dean's catalog is a premium property, rich in heritage, personality, and evergreen hits. It's a cornerstone in Iconic's heritage brand portfolio. As of early 2025, the Trust is working closely with Iconic's in-house licensing team, Crane Law Group, and estate representatives to carefully approve new ventures. They're balancing nostalgia with contemporary appeal, while ensuring Dean's name retains integrity. Beyond podcasts and playlists, whispered in industry circles are plans for new documentaries, authorized biopics, and streaming specials. Directors and producers are in talks, though none are confirmed yet. Iconic has explored feature-length retrospectives that blend archival footage with interviews, potentially timed to future anniversaries, like his 109th birthday. Meanwhile, the annual Dean Martin Festival in Steubenville is staging a purposeful 2025 revival, bolstered by trust backing and community passion. It marks the first comprehensive hometown celebration in years, including live performances, young talent showcases, and family-sponsored scholarships. From popcorn gift sets to TikTok dance challenges, from strategic catalog partnerships to festivals and film projects, Dean Martin's presence has transformed into a modern brand, timeless yet refreshingly relevant. His voice serenades both vintage lovers and Gen Z users scrolling for something with soul. From June 12th to 14th, 2025, Steubenville, Ohio, transformed into a vibrant tribute to its most famous native son, Dean Martin. The 29th Annual Dean Martin Festival, orchestrated by the Dean Martin Association alongside the city and the Harmonium Project, celebrated his 108th birthday with style and heart. From jazz ensembles at the Berkman Amphitheater to Russ Loniello, a longtime Dean impersonator, fans were treated to a weekend of sway-inducing melodies and heartfelt performances. Parade and Dino-5K on June 14th, downtown streets closed for a festive parade with floats, Rat Pack tributes, and community groups, followed by the Dino-5K race that energized the crowd, karaoke contest, and meatball eating showdown. Patrons flocked to the Spot Bar for Dean-themed karaoke, hosted by Lou Martini Jr., and competitive food fun made for unforgettable memories. This wasn't just a fan event, it was a community homecoming. Locals, out-of-town Dean devotees, and even family members converged on Steubenville. The festival benefited the Ohio Valley Health Center, with the charity golf scramble at Steubenville Country Club and grassroots efforts such as volunteers-led preparations to relaunch longtime favorites like the meatball eating contest. Together, they resurrected the joyful spirit that first brought this celebration to life. Amid the festivities, tender moments stirred deep emotion. Fans shared tearful recounts of childhood memories. Local historians showcased Dean memorabilia. One woman tearfully remarked, "He put our town on the map," capturing the collective pride that thrummed through every event. As the final notes of That's Amore drifted across the crowd at the 2025 Dean Martin Festival, one figure stepped forward, not as a performer, but as a daughter. Deana Martin, dressed in classic black and pearls, took the stage with grace and quiet strength. The crowd erupted, but this was no ordinary appearance. This was something deeper. This was blood, memory, and music coming together in one deeply personal moment. For decades, Deana Martin has been the heartbeat of her father's legacy, not just the keeper of his name, but the keeper of his soul. In her acclaimed memoir, Memories Are Made of This Dean Martin, through his daughter's eyes, she revealed the tender, complex man behind the tuxedo. The father who cooked breakfast on Sundays, who sent her handwritten notes when she performed, and who once whispered before a big show, "You've got it, baby. Just let them hear it." Her book wasn't about a legend, it was about a dad. But Deana didn't stop at words. She's traveled the world performing her father's greatest hits, not as imitations, but as loving reinterpretations. Backed by full orchestras, she's sung Volar, Ain't That a Kick in the Head, and Sway, bringing her own warmth and vocal flair to every performance. Fans from London to Las Vegas have packed theatres not just to hear the songs, but to feel the connection. And in Steubenville, her father's hometown, she gave the ultimate tribute, a medley of his most beloved songs, paired with old home footage projected behind her. The crowd was silent. Some clutched programs like they were prayer books, others simply wept. Between songs, she told stories of how Dean would hum while cooking, of his fierce love for his children, of the pain he never voiced after her brother Dean Paul's passing. She didn't just perform. She let the world remember him the way only a daughter could. In interviews, Deana has said, "My mission isn't just to sing the songs, it's to keep his memory alive, not just the performer, but the man who loved his family more than anything." And on that stage, under those lights, surrounded by photos, melodies, and memories, she did just that. A daughter's love, echoing through time. The legacy that refuses to fade. The global impact of Dean Martin's music, image, and timeless charm in an age he never lived to see. Dean Martin didn't just leave behind records and reruns. He left behind a feeling, a mood, a presence, a coolness that couldn't be bottled or faked. Decades after his final bow, Dean's voice still hums through radios and smart speakers. His films still play in living rooms on rainy Sundays. And his smile, equal parts charm and mischief, still appears on t-shirts, mugs, posters, and billboards across the world. In a culture that often forgets yesterday's icons, Dean Martin endures. Why? Because Dean Martin was more than just a star. He was a symbol of a time when elegance didn't have to try too hard, when a joke didn't need a punchline to be funny, and when a song could say more in 3 minutes than some people manage in a lifetime. He mastered film, Rio Bravo, Ocean's 11, The Young Lions, television, The Dean Martin Show, celebrity roasts, and of course, music, where his velvet baritone shaped generations of singers. From crooners to comedians, countless artists have cited him as a quiet influence. But the ones who feel his absence most deeply, his family. His daughter Deana Martin continues to tour globally, not just to sing his songs, but to share his essence. In interviews, she reflects on the private Dean, the father who smelled like aquavelva and cigars, who wrote little notes on napkins, who always answered the phone with, "Hey, pal." His son, Richie Martin, before his passing in 2016, often described Dean not as a superstar, but as a dad who showed up to Little League games and made the best Sunday pasta on the block. He had this way of making you feel like the center of the room, even when he barely said a word, Richie once said. Even today, younger Martin family members are discovering new ways to carry the torch. With the help of digital platforms and licensing partners, Dean's catalog is being reintroduced to audiences that never saw him live, but instantly recognize his presence. He's been sampled in commercials, parodied in comedy sketches, and quoted by presidents. And yet, the soul of his legacy isn't in the fame. It's in the fact that people, strangers, friends, family, still feel something when they hear his voice. Dean Martin's story was never just about fame. It was about family, laughter, and a kind of magic that doesn't fade. He died quietly on Christmas Day, but he left behind a legacy louder than applause, one that still sings, one that still smiles, one that still matters.